know this thing. The president comes on television, or Catholic, and he said, I'm going to make sure every woman can have an abortion. And people clap. And the church should be speaking up. The country has lost their moral something because nobody's speaking up.
Unfortunately, that's an issue that people can honestly disagree on.
The Bible says it. I'm not. They may say
Not
it.
everybody adheres to the Bible. Not everybody understands that as a proper interpretation of the Bible. People can honestly disagree. Now, listen, what I've learned is we have to listen to the people who have honest beliefs that disagree with us. I have learned so much from listening to people who have different points of view. If I just listen, rather than start thinking about, oh, I'm going to shoot back, if I listen to them and then think about it, and they challenge my points of view, I get smarter. So a lot of you can honestly, well, let me put it, wait a minute. Can you honestly disagree about the threat of nuclear weapons?
No, I believe that's all true.
Okay, well, let's go work on that.
Pardon?
Might that be the most pro-life thing that we could do? A threat to civilization? So let's go work on that and continue to try to work on the other issues that you addressed that you think people are wrong-headed about.
It isn't me thinking it, it's what the Bible, for Christians. We have to live the Bible. We can't just say it's all right. That's what the problem is. And the nuclear thing is just saying it's great, this is all true. But there's nobody in the public eye that's speaking up for Christ. So that's my say, so that's how I can do it.
Okay, I hear you. Okay. But will that keep you from working to eliminate nuclear weapons?
No, that won't, but
Great.
it'll keep me from asking those people that don't even believe in what the Bible says. Believe me, I don't want them to believe me.
Right. I understand it makes you less hopeful.
It does.
We are asked by Jesus to work on things where there doesn't appear to be hope. He said, blessed are the peacemakers.
Definitely.
Right? And he didn't say, blessed are the peacemakers when it's convenient. Blessed are the peacemakers when they know they've had lots of support. He said, blessed are the peacemakers. I've been trying to live my life according to the Beatitudes. My wife, who's passed away, was known in our parish as a woman of the Beatitudes. I think that's a good standard. And so I commend it to you. And I think it calls for us to work on some of these issues. And you should work on the ones that you think are important to you. But please work on the nuclear weapons one before we lose the earth. Because can you imagine? I mean, God does not want this to happen. And we have put us, man has put us in this situation. And we can undo it. Because these are man-made weapons. So, not a good answer for you, but I hope it's enough that you will do something about eliminating nuclear weapons.
No, I agree with you on that.
Thank you very much.
I agree with you.
Right.
I'm just trying to say that.
I understand.
They don't come that way.
Even if you don't have full hope, work on it. Thank you. Okay. Yes, sir.
Nice job, Peter, on the presentation.
Real loud, please.
I said, nice job.
Oh, thank you very much.
Everybody wanted me to say louder?
Say it into the camera, would you?
I certainly agree with your overall proposition. Where I always struggle is with the difficulty of understanding how we are to respond when we essentially get to the point where we do not fundamentally trust the other side. I understand your points about, the verification and the openness and all of that, and certainly think that that's an essential element of all that we do. But if I could draw, I guess a comparison, maybe, just a comparison. When Mikhail Gorbachev was the leader of the Soviet Union, there seemed to be a legitimate chance that we could in fact make some significant headways in living together peacefully side by side. With Vladimir Putin, he doesn't do anything, in my mind, to justify any level of trust whatsoever. And so I'm left trying to figure out how we responsibly act on a matter such as this. In a smaller but still very serious sense, we have that dilemma playing out right now with us in Ukraine. And it's playing out right now in Congress, with certain parts of Congress wanting us to stop supporting Ukraine. I desperately want the war to stop in Ukraine, but I can't say in truthfulness that I want us to stop supporting Ukraine. So that's where my dilemma always is, and I'd be interested in your thoughtful response to it.
I share most of what you say. I don't like the fact that we have a war going on in Ukraine and that the United States and our allies are participating in it. On the other hand, I don't like the idea that Russia should be able to overtake another country and basically put them into captivity. The Ukrainians, and most church teaching says you have the right to defend yourself if you are attacked. The Ukrainians have chosen to defend themselves. We're choosing, in my mind, to help them defend themselves. But I think we should be working, and I'm not at all sure that this is happening, to try to bring a cessation to the killing. The killing has to stop. Thousands of people are dying every month. We have to find a way. We need far more diplomacy, far more energetic work to try to reach some kind of agreement. You know, nobody thought that we would ever get an agreement with Iran to stop its nuclear weapons development program. It took almost 4 years to negotiate what's really a very simple treaty. We gave some things. They gave some things. They agreed to inspections and verification. The treaty had time limits on it, so that if it didn't get followed up and succeeded by another treaty or reinstituted, it would evaporate. That was the best we could do at the time, but it stopped their nuclear weapons development. We didn't know when we went into those negotiations what we were going to get out of it. But fortunately, Barack Obama told John Kerry, try. And John Kerry said, I think I have an opening. And he went to the Sultan of anyway. They did backdoor negotiations for a year. Nobody knew about it. Iranians and Americans met in the Middle East. Very adroit, very, I mean, they were using the best techniques they could of having a discussion about a very difficult thing. And eventually out of that, after 3.5 or so years of arduous work and several dead stops, seemingly impassable to overcome, they persisted and did overcome it and did come to an agreement. Very imperfect agreement, but under it, Iran stopped its nuclear development program. And I believe the UN International Atomic Energy inspectors who certified that repeatedly, every 3 months, and they had inspection apparatus up the wazoo. They had apparatus, they had people, the whole works. I believe when they kept certifying it that Iran was not further enriching its uranium beyond the agreement that the limit that they had agreed to, I believe they were correct. There's actually no evidence that they didn't. Well, it's a very imperfect agreement. But it stopped something that was potentially going to be very good. It's very bad. I think that's how you get started on this stuff. Fine, aim for complete cessation, but if you have to settle for partial, that's better than none. If you can de-escalate the threat, you can de-escalate the risk. I mean, if the United States was to take all of its nuclear weapons off of hair trigger alert, remember I described those 1,000 missiles? They're on hair trigger alert. In less than 15 seconds, most of them are on their way from the time the president says go. Same system in Russia. It's handled a little bit differently, but they have the same, effectively the same mechanism. If both countries were to take their weapons off of hair trigger alert, that's a big step forward. It eliminates the risk of unintentional nuclear war. Well, that's part of the Back from the Brink program. Back from the Brink calls, first and foremost, for the United States to initiate agreements, but also to seek to do these other things like take your weapons off of hair trigger alert. It's the best I could come up with. And I think we are obliged morally to try to do something. The best we can do, to try to do the best, the very best we can do. But no promises of success.
I don't want to.
Go ahead.
I don't want to monopolize, but.
No, go ahead.
But just to, it's, and everything you say makes very good sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to be argumentative.
Please do.
It's
I've not learned something.
It's just trying to grasp it, because I mean, so much depends fundamentally on us the people who elect our leaders. Without trying to be overtly political about it, if I was a Russian or a Chinese citizen and Donald Trump was our president, I wouldn't be too comfortable about negotiating with the United States. The man is erratic and unpredictable at a minimum. And that's not going to engender any trust on the other side if you put yourself in their shoes. We have that part in our control as to who we elect, theoretically. If you go to Russia and China, those are not democracies. Those are dictatorships, and those are very susceptible to the whims of the person that is in control, or the apparatus that's in control. And that's where it gets so bloody tough. I mean, even if you get people on one side, people like us, electing, a logical, peace-seeking president in Congress, it's hard to figure how you engender that on the other side without actually a mass movement to change. It's just I'm not looking to you for a solution. I guess I'm just offering.
There isn't any good answer, but I'll tell you.
There's not. Sad.
Nobody trusted the Ayatollah of Iran to stop the program and to negotiate honestly. And we got somewhere. We had other Russian leaders that we didn't think were trustworthy, but we negotiated with them and we succeeded. We got 55,000 nuclear weapons between the United States and Russia eliminated, dealing with untrustworthy people. Ronald Reagan is not one of my big heroes, but he said, trust but verify. And he said that in the nuclear, at the commencement of these nuclear reduction agreements, trust but verify. And he said it many times. He's very right. Even guys you don't entirely agree with do have some wisdom. And that's where I think he was very right. And so that's what you aim for. I don't know what else to tell you. The Russian leader that we've got is the one we've got. And we don't get to change it. U.S. leader, as you said, so we plow on. And maybe trust in the good Lord as well. I mean, after all, if we're on the right side, don't you think we're going to get a little help? Don't you trust your guardian angel? I trust mine. My guardian angel has been absolutely wonderful. I don't know anything about him or her, but boy, have I been very lucky. I've got the strongest, best guardian angel. So I don't trust her to the point of throwing myself off a bridge, but I trust her to steer me in the right direction a lot of times. And so you go into situations where you don't really know how the outcome is going to be, but you're trying to do the right thing, You're thoughtful, you listen, pray for guidance, plow on. I think that's our moral obligation. I think that ask yourself, this is what we need to do when we encounter a difficult situation. What would Jesus want to do? I think there's no better way to ask yourself what to do than to try to answer that question.
Okay,
Sir.
So, yeah, no, I'm not a sir, I'm a man, but never mind. So what I was going to say, you know, you're saying trust and verify, and I think that we have a responsibility. I mean, we did not use these words too much, but we need to pray a whole lot. I mean, we're at La Salette, you know, Mary was crying. How many times we need to say the rosary, we need to pray, but we also, you know, you talk about the angels. Tomorrow is the feast of Raphael, Michael, and Gabriel. And then October 2nd is the guardian angels. I mean, we need to do that. We need to storm the heavens. We need to pray. We need to teach others to pray. And we need to do that in force. And, you know, I believe in the power of prayer. A lot of us in this room, I'm sure, have seen miraculous things happen because of prayer. And I don't know, you know, what's going to happen with nuclear stuff. I know we need to write, we need to do these things as well. But if we don't come from a place in our hearts where we're really prayerful, you know, Jesus said, blessed are the peacemakers, but he also said, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are so many things if you're looking at the Beatitudes. So that has to be important to us, you know. And, you know, this year is a big push for the Eucharistic presence, and we need to know that Jesus is with us, body, blood, soul, spirit, you know, all of that. We need to know that.
I think you're right on. I think you're right on. It's only that that's not sufficient. So the watchwords of Pax Christi are pray, study, act. Not just pray, not just study, but act. And that's everything I've heard from the words of Jesus are we have to act.
Salt and light.
So, okay, go ahead.
I guess I want to touch on.
How are we doing time-wise?
We're not doing very well time-wise. Let this be the last question.
Okay,
I
sorry.
guess I just want to
We're
touch
good.
a little bit on.
We're good.
So, we're good? You sure?
Oh, okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to touch a little bit on the idea of hope. I'm appreciating all that's being said here tonight and appreciate your presentation, but I'm thinking about all of the people who died in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They all had guardian angels too. I have family members in mass graves in 2 countries. They prayed, and so this is. Yes, we need to, but it's not transactional. There's something so much bigger here. And it's sometimes hard to maintain hope. You know, you talk about being disappointed or in President Biden for, you know, saying all the right things but not moving forward. And I'm thinking, we can't even have reasonable conversations about assault weapons, you know, and the victims are our children. And so we're expecting, you know, our leaders to have these bigger conversations in a context of citizens who have a warrior mentality. And I just find it hard sometimes to maintain any traction in hope. I do come back to prayer, I do come back to faith, but it's just so big.
I hear you, and I understand, and the only thing I'd say is, don't let your discouragement on one front get to you on another front. Okay, there may not be much you can do about the failure to have assault weapons bans. There is actually some things you can do, of course. You need to yell to the rooftops that we should have one, okay, so that the good members of Congress can get some more energy.
But it's not
But
even
that's
that.
what I'm asking for here on nuclear weapons. We don't have anybody yelling about that.
But that's
We don't
not,
have anybody saying, you guys put us in this pickle. There should be massive indignation across the world that the leaders of the world have put the whole of humanity at risk in order to project power,
But
in
my
order to
point-
deter.
my point is not that, you know, it's this and that. It's that we can't have this conversation when we're trying to have this other. And we have leaders, I mean, President Biden trying to bring this up in a context where, you know, in the House of Representatives, they're wearing lapel pins of weapons.
I'm sorry, they're wearing what?
Lapel pins of assault rifles, on the assault rifle pins on their lapels. So we have this warrior mentality where we're trying to have, we're not even able to have the conversations, which is really frustrating.
But don't be intimidated by some fringe minority, okay? There aren't very many congressmen who are wearing assault weapon pins. There really aren't. They're getting a lot of press, of course. If I could get into the House floor, I know how to get a lot of press. I would do something utterly fantastic. It would make the national press. Okay, I don't know what it would be, but that's how they get attention to their belief. We need to strive equally hard for our belief. We need to be ingenious, clever, prayerful, thoughtful, and determined. And then if it's not working, figure out what else to do, or what other to do. And I don't think Jesus asks us for anything less. So don't be discouraged entirely.
I'm not talking about discouragement, I'm talking about sort of the lay of the land.
Yeah.
You know, that I appreciate that, you know, by what Biden's up against here. It's not just what's happening in Congress, we're talking about, you know, our citizens are divided on weapons. And we have a warrior culture.
Right, yes, right. Yeah, we have a warrior culture in this country. Strength and independence and the primacy of the individual are very deeply rooted in the American culture. You might ask whether that's the right thing to build the American culture on.
Yep.
I mean, look at
We
entertainment,
built,
video games.
but they're not the only thing in the American culture. Also in the American culture is a great spirit of generosity. We're the most generous nation on earth. American people are extraordinarily generous. They are mostly of very good heart. So there's some things wrong with America. But as my now the great man who was my pastor some years ago said, I think it's the best we can have. I'm sticking with it, and I'm going to try and make it better. Okay, one more.
Just one good
Yeah,
thought.
Sure. Please, anybody has to go, please.
I would like to share just a simple thought that when each of us come to Christ, each of us was saved by God's grace. There's nothing that we're worthy His mercy. And if you take the word grace, G-R-A-C-E,
Yeah.
it's God's riches at Christ's expense. So when we come to the Christ and we keep our eyes on the cross, prayer, like the lady was saying, is important. You know, none of us are perfect. But, you know, it keeps me knowing that Christ died for me, and we all try to do our best. We have to believe God's in charge of this whole thing in the end. So we can't let it get defeated over it.
Can I please add just one more question?
Sure.
Who loses? They don't really lose if we do this, but who thinks they lose economically if we take this path of eliminating nuclear weapons? Who are the economic losers? Because they will be standing in the way.
Yes. So the question is, who are the economic losers if we do succeed in canceling our nuclear weapons development program and working towards the elimination of nuclear weapons? There will be a lot of economic losers. There are thousands of people just in the Archbishop Wester's archdiocese who are dependent for their livelihood on this industry. So what does he say to them? He said, I know you're there. I know you think that you're serving your country by making it stronger. I think that's a mistake. I want to put all my energy that I can into finding better jobs. I want this money turned into battling climate change, into anti-poverty programs, into better education. So we have to get these people, I mean, you're identifying something that has to be part of our thoughtful approach to this. Is protecting the people who are currently doing this work who we really want to stop. We don't want to just throw them out on the street. We should not say, you're a bad person. I do have friends in the nuclear disarmament movement who say, those are evil industries. Those are evil people at the top. You know, Jesus told us not to say that about people, not to make that presumption, to presume that people are doing what they believe is right, and then to talk to them and reason with them and to help them see the error of their ways. He didn't say to condemn them. So, then what we have to do is be responsible for them. You ask a very good question. You got further thoughts on that?
I just think that they're gonna have to see that any other issue we care about is gonna be totally irrelevant if this possibility becomes a reality. It's just not gonna matter. So we can't just be one issue people. We have to be pro-life for the whole of life, as a certain organization says. And I think it really can't be said better, Cardinal Bernardine's seamless garment of life. And sadly, there are some who have no use for that these days, but you can't be halfway on life. You can't care about one thing and not care about the other. You can ration your, you can focus your time and energy on one issue, but you cannot be out of alliance on other issues, or you are not pro-life. You can't be for nuclear disarmament and against life at its beginning or end. You can't be for life at its beginning or end and not be for life every day in between. You just can't. Poverty is a life issue.
I think that's the ideal.
Good.
I'm sorry, I think that's the ideal. I don't think we can stop because some people don't live to the most perfect.
So you have to align with others where you're in common. No one's going to agree 100%. There is room for dialogue, but if you have an understanding, and I'm not saying if you have my understanding, if you have an understanding of the preciousness of life at this stage, you need to work with people who don't necessarily agree with you on other stages. I just don't see the consistency of it, but we do have to be practical and not just idealistic. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to thank you all very, very much. I can stay around and talk to you.
Peter will stay around.
Yes. Sorry, we have one more thing to do here.
I want to thank you, Peter, for joining us tonight and for giving us so much to bring to our prayer, to learn more about, and especially to act upon. And also, before we close with a prayer, remind people that there are plenty of pamphlets and booklets and information at the table to my left, and coffee, more coffee to my right before you leave. So let's just take a moment to silence as we conclude this evening, to call to mind all the victims of our nuclear weapons industry. The women, men, and children harmed and killed during the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. All the people harmed by the fallout of nuclear weapons testing here in this country and around the world. All those that have been sickened or who have died because of the radiated waste from nuclear weapons manufacturing that is buried near their homes, contaminating the earth and their water supply. For all those people who are being robbed of the millions of tax dollars spent on nuclear weaponry that could have been spent on our schools, our infrastructure, and our support for the least among us in our communities. God, hear our prayer, guide our action. Amen.
Amen.